Good evening, and welcome to Island View, the first docu-news program that focuses on Staten Island and Staten Island alone. Each week we will document issues that affect our lives as Staten Island residents, issues that sadly receive little or no mainstream media attention. There is an eerie silence when it comes to our concerns. With Island View, that silence will end. Tonight's top story, the Verrazzano Bridge toll controversy.
What they should be doing is cutting the tolls down substantially. Cut it down to $1.50. Cut it down to $1. I mean, that's enough.
Also, the landfill.
We're constantly watching it to see if anything shows up that might indicate that there's anything hazardous.
Later on in the show, an islander with a beef. Then we spotlight the Staten Island town, Tottenville. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Our field reporter, Tony Petrozza, will be covering tonight's top story, the Verrazzano Bridge toll controversy. Let's go now to Tony atop the Verrazzano Bridge tower. Tony?
This bridge was named in honor of Giovanni da Verrazzano. He discovered New York Bay in 1524. I stand here 690 feet above the sea, above 12 lanes of traffic, above enough cable wire to go halfway to the moon. But the sun is setting on the longest span in North America, with men like David Dinkins, Howard Golden, and Louis Riccio pushing for a change in the toll system, spouting rhetoric that the island-bound toll has failed from a transportation, environmental, and revenue perspective.
We're fighting in a very big issue. We talked about the one-way toll issue. Amazingly, there's a press conference held by Ruth Messenger, Borough President of Manhattan, Howard Golden, Borough President of Brooklyn, saying they don't like the one-way toll collection. But another player joined in the fray, David Dinkins, and he came on their side against the side of Staten Islanders.
At the present time, the one-way toll system is being studied by an engineering company that is doing a study on if Brooklyn and Manhattan are being affected by vehicles that are coming and diverting from paying tolls at the Holland and Lincoln tunnels and coming through the free side of the toll plaza. One of the advantages to it is that Staten Islanders don't have a queue in the morning to wait, online. And one of the disadvantages is that Brooklyn and Manhattan are seeing an increase in traffic because people are going around the loop to avoid the toll coming back.
The free circle route theory depicts trucks entering the New York area via the Verrazzano, conducting their business, and exiting via Manhattan. Truckers deny this, but at any rate it is documented that the biggest jump in traffic in Lower Manhattan and Brooklyn took place a year before the one-way toll's inception.
Right now they're looking at three options. They're looking at keeping it as it is, they're looking at going back to two-way toll collection, and they're looking at reversing the toll collection. The latter, reversing the toll collection, appears to be the one that meets with the greatest of favor from their standpoint.
While a toll change might have a marginal effect on traffic in Lower Manhattan and Brooklyn, it could back up the Staten Island Expressway to the West Shore and increase air pollution dramatically. It would cost over $8 million to change the system, choking the toll plaza from both sides instead of one.
We did a study, an environmental impact study was done, and that recommendation has been is being reviewed now by TBTA.
The state law will always require an environmental impact study, an EIS we call it. So what happens is, anytime there's a toll increase, they have an EIS. They study what's the effect going to be on the environment. Nobody has ever said, let's study the economic impact of the toll increase.
We'll be seeing more of Tony and the Verrazzano Bridge later on in the program. But right after this commercial break, we're going to look at the landfill. Stay tuned. You pay $6 to get on the bridge. Of that $6, $2.69 goes to the Transit Authority. The MTA takes another $2.47. It only costs approximately 70 cents to run and maintain that bridge.
Welcome back. We took a brief tour of the Staten Island Freshkills landfill to give you a better understanding on what goes on and the operations at the landfill. Let's take a look. In operation since 1948, the Freshkills landfill has been a dumping ground for Staten Island, as well as the surrounding boroughs. Your garbage is picked up and brought directly to the landfill. The rest of the city's trash is hauled to a marine transfer station, such as this one on 59th Street, on the west side of Manhattan. It is placed in a barge, covered with a net, and then taken to the Freshkills through the city's vast waterways. Once it arrives, it must pass through a series of booms, including the multi-million-dollar super boom, which can only be opened during the incoming tide. As it navigates the Great Freshkills, it passes patrolling sweepers, which pick up any trash that may fall off the barge. The refuse is transferred into a pad, where a huge pay hauler brings it to the active bank, where it is then dumped into a narrow strip compacted by a 40-ton compactor that crushes and grades the trash until it reaches a certain height. It is then covered by a layer of earth called fill. The bank is filled according to specifications. Eventually, it will be deactivated, such as sections 3-4, seen here being cosmetically graded by a swamp cat.
We're sitting right now in a 3,000-acre landfill. It's the largest in the world. And basically what we do here is handle all the city's waste. Approximately 14,000 tons a day comes into Freshkills. And it's my job to oversee the operation of the landfill, equipment, facilities, and the productivity of Freshkills in general.
DEC's role at Freshkills landfill is to ensure that the operations, the transport and disposal of garbage is performed within the requirements of state law.
We have a job to do, and we try to do it in a proper manner. Most of the people that work here live on the island, and we're just as concerned as the rest of the citizens that the landfill is a safe and a clean operating place.
Stay tuned to part 2 of the landfill, where we ask the question, is Freshkills hazardous to the Staten Island community? And later on in the program, we do a spotlight on Tottenville. We'll be back.
The current height of the landfill, the height of the Statue of Liberty, the projected height of the landfill, 435 feet.
Welcome back to Island View. Before the break, we took a look at the Freshkills landfill's operation. Now let's go to part 2 for a more in-depth look.
We don't allow any toxic waste of any kind in Freshkills. The only substance that would be hazardous that comes in here is asbestos, and that's handled separately. We have a separate work area for it. The equipment and the personnel that handle it are protected by it, and in reality we only get a few cubic yards every 2 weeks that comes into Freshkills.
We do still allow some commercial garbage to come in if people pay a very high fee. But that garbage is monitored and inspected very closely. It has to have a weigh bill. We look at it when it comes in. We watch it very carefully to make sure that that anything doesn't come in that should not come in. And there are very strict regulations in terms of what can come in. There's always a question in terms of 30 years ago when things were much less closely monitored, or 20 years ago, and we took much more commercial garbage, not only at Freshkills but at the landfills all around the city. There really is a question of what may have come in at that time, and that's why under the state regulations we monitor both the air emissions and the leachate very, very quickly, and we're constantly watching it to see if anything shows up that might indicate that there's anything hazardous in the landfill. At this point, we don't have any indications that there is.
Okay, leachate is the liquid that comes out of the landfill, and that's caused by water entering it through rain, snow, mixing in with the decomposed garbage, and when it comes out of our mountainsides, it's called leachate.
The environmental studies done to date show that there is an effect within the stream water bodies, which is expected. The result of the studies is plans for design and construction of leachate collection and containment structures, which we expect the construction of those devices to begin sometime in 1994.
There are right now, I believe, 7 different studies going on about health in Staten Island, including one that we requested from the city's Department of Health to look and see if there were any particular patterns of illness on Staten Island and try to identify what the possible sources might be. One of our concerns has been not only to get all of these studies going, but to make sure that they were then coordinated. And we have asked the Mayor's Office of Operations to work with all the different agencies conducting these studies to try to put the pieces together so that we and the residents of Staten Island will end up with some better understanding of whether there's a significant pattern, and if so, whether any of it can be attributed to the landfill. To date, we do not have indications that any of the illnesses are the kinds of things that are directly attributable to the landfill.
There have been a lot of things dumped at Freshkills that shouldn't have been dumped there, and it causes me great concern for the nearby residents and for the people that work there. But that's something that we just started our investigation into finding out what happened and what's it all about. And as soon as we have a report, we'll be releasing it to the public.
Spotlight on Tottenville. Quaint, rural, peaceful. It seems as though the hands of time tend to be a bit more forgiving on the southernmost tip of Staten Island. Some of the oldest and most beautiful houses in our country call Tottenville their home. Despite heavy development in recent years, it still holds fast to its identity as a hidden village. Tottenville is truly New York City's last frontier. We interviewed lifetime Tottenville resident and historian Muriell Bedell.
There was about 12 old families on Staten Island, and as they moved out, intermarried, then they named each street after an old family. The Bedell family has been on Staten Island since the 1600s. In 1841, Isaac Pray Bedell, my great-great-grandfather, was a carpenter. He built most of Tottenville. Back in the 1930s, there was a real estate boom. There was a man by the name of Harmon brought up a lot of property down the end of Highland Boulevard where the conference house is. It was called the Realty Trust property. And he developed it. He put in sidewalks, streets, and fire hydrants and lights. All the young men, like my father's age, they all played baseball in those days. You made your own fun. Every Sunday afternoon there was a baseball game up there. And we used to have carnivals come to town. They do it today with the churches, with the merry-go-rounds and things, but they'd have a whole week's carnival with a circus up at the field, and they'd have booths, and they'd have beauty pageants and parades, and they'd make all their own recreation. But it was a very public-spirited town, and a lot of town spirit.
If you're looking for a place to kick back in Tottenville, you've got a number of choices. Like Brittany's Restaurant and Lounge on Amboy Road, 4E's on Page Avenue, Tomorrow's Tavern on Main Street, Doobie's Bar on Amboy Road, and the Laser Karaoke Club, also on Amboy Road. And of course, the Tottenville Pool for some fun in the sun, located on Highland Boulevard. There's the Rockaway Cove Tavern, hidden away at the bottom of Rockaway Avenue. MJ's Supper Club for elegant dining. And Rutgers Distributors, where all the taverns get their Anheuser-Busch products.
We attract a variety of people here, basically because of our sports paraphernalia, showing all the games. On Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we have a live DJ, so we attract a different crowd, people who like to listen to music. At the same time, we attract people because of our food. We also have fine dining. Now, I wouldn't say fine dining, but the food is excellent.
Welcome back. Each week we search for an Islander who has an axe to grind. This week, Valerie Greco of Bull's Head caught our eye. Like many Islanders, she has to commute to New York City each and every weekday to work. Well, she's got a beef with the private bus lines.
I'm commuting from Bull's Head on Richmond Avenue into Midtown Manhattan, and I have a hard time commuting to and from Manhattan, especially during the summer, because I believe that the private bus companies cut down the number of buses that they set out on the Staten Island commuter run. But during the summer, the bus companies apparently have more profitable runs going to Great Adventure and Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia. Apparently those runs are more profitable per person fare than the Staten Island commuters. And I really think that if you're going to have a commitment to be a Staten Island bus company, a private bus company, since there are only two major companies that go to Midtown, you really need to dedicate X amount of buses and shouldn't leave the commuters wondering if a bus is going to show up. Because we have an obligation to be at work a certain time, and there's no other way we can get to work short of taking the ferry. And if you work Midtown, taking the ferry is just not an option.
Private bus lines looks like it could be a topic for an upcoming show. At the beginning of this show, we gave you the first part of the Verrazzano Bridge story. Well, here's part two. Nobody has ever said, let's study the economic impact of the toll increase. The Economic Development Corporation, we asked them, and they said, oh, we don't look at that. That's handled by the MTA or the Tri-Borough Bridge and Tunnel Authority. Nobody was looking at it. Nobody whatsoever. We hired a consultant, a professional consultant, and she is very highly regarded, Dr. Rubin, came up with a study showing that it's a severe impact on the location of new businesses. Nobody's ever looked at that, but it's common sense. That's a cost of doing business. You add that to the highest tax rate in the country, you add that to the highest utility rates in the country, and then you got the highest tolls on the bridges in the country. How can businesses survive? I mean, this is a shame. And frankly, what it shows is that there's a total lack of regard for looking at the total picture. What is the whole picture here? How is it affecting us? Frankly, what they should be doing is cutting the tolls down substantially. I'm not talking about from $6 to $5 or $4. Cut it down to $1.50. Cut it down to $1. I mean, that's enough, but you're going to be attracting businesses.
Staten Island leaders are not alone in their fight. New Jersey congressmen are also joining in to retain the current system. Representative Robert Franks is concerned his Jersey districts would suffer stemming from New Jersey Staten Island approaches. He also worries about violating the Federal Clean Air Act, soon to go into effect. And that translates into loss of federal subsidies for Frank and his fellow congressmen, a majority of who support the present system, along with Senator Alphonse Lamano.
We had public hearings recently, and you know, that will be decided by the TBTA and the MTA.
But the TBTA wants to change. They stand to make more money, while you stand on the highway trying to get to work.
The bridge is used on the average by approximately 172,000 vehicles a day. That's both directions.
63 million vehicles a year. That's over $155 million to the TBTA. At the mouth of New York Bay, the VZ Bridge is an integral part of the interstate highway system, providing the shortest route from the Middle Eastern seaboard to Long Island. Any change would have some effect all over the metropolitan area, influencing traffic at Hudson and East River crossings. With everyone's inevitable entry into the melee, this battle has been building ever since then Representative Molinari introduced the one-way toll in 1986.
But I think the record of the mayor on Staten Island speaks for itself. The mayor has not been a friend of Staten Island. The battles of the tolls will continue. The battle of the one-way toll is heating up right now. We expect within the next couple of months that some decisions will be made there.
Profound words from Borough President Molinari. The one-way toll battle is just heating up, but you can make a difference. Get out and vote. Know what goes on in your community. You can shape the future of the Verrazzano Bridge.
Well, that concludes this edition of Island View. Directly following the credits will be our P.O. Box number and a telephone number. Write these down. If you have a question, a comment, a story, or a beef, give us a call. Drop us a line. Let's get together on this. From Island View, good night and see you next week.